So first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. And out of curiosity, who is building on CosmWasm in the crowd? No one. One. Just one. OK, who's building on the EVM?
No, you did it because it's easy.
Yeah, all right. So that gives us a base to
Wait, is it easy?
to kickstart the this debate.
It's easy to copy paste.
Oh yeah, that's the best thing about Solidity is the copy paste ability. If you can't write Solidity, you can just copy someone else. You know, that's great.
Yeah, or you ask ChatGPT, it works as well.
It does work for CosmWasm too. But first, guys, I'll let you introduce yourselves. Jerome, on the EVM side.
So I'm Jerome. I've mostly written smart contract in Solidity since like the Solidity version 2, I think. I run Ethereum France, non-profit hosting conferences and events, notably ECC, and I have a gaming and middleware company called Cometh, and we have ETH in the name because we do things on the EVM. But I love the Cosmos ecosystem overall. So if I say something that sounds harsh, it's just for the sake of the debate.
Your kind of Cometh are not really Cosmos aligned, I would say.
Well, space-wise, yes, we love the space narrative and overall space assets. So yeah. Well.
Jake.
My name is Jake. Started some projects in the Cosmos. Yeah, you might know Juno, you might know DAO, and yeah, work on a bunch of things there. Actually got my start in Solidity, though. I wrote my first line of Solidity around 2016, and I'm currently working on an art project in Solidity, so I still actually write it. And it's like your grandma or your grandfather. It's like they might be a little bit crazy, they might be a little bit outdated, but you still got to respect them because everything, like all these concepts, DAOs, DeFi, like NFTs, they came from Solidity. So there's a lot of respect in my heart towards the EVM.
All right. So where should we start? You're the host. So tell us what's the weapon of choice here.
The weapon of choice is that for a long time on the Cosmos SDK, you could build with CosmWasm and have this general purpose kind of smart contract environment to beef up your Cosmos chain, let's put it this way. And that was a good selling point for CosmWasm. And now we're seeing the L3 stack becoming more mature. You have like the ZK stack on ZK Sync. You have Polygon that has an agenda for L3s. You have Sovereign Labs working on different kind of rollups that you can easily bootstrap with an EVM. And it kind of feels that now it is possible to have an EVM or a WASM system while benefiting from the network effects of the whole Ethereum space.
Cosmos was right.
Cosmos was right.
Yeah, Cosmos was right. Just maybe not executed in the right order, but the Cosmos overall approach of modularity was probably the right one. Now, well, one chain have the network effect now. So
interesting. So one chain has the network effect. What would you say against that, Jake?
I mean, I actually agree with all that. We need to fight more. I think that's what people really want. They want the fighting.
So what do you like about WASM?
What do I like about WASM? Well, one of the things you can actually do with WASM is actually you can run the EVM inside of WASM. That's one thing, right?
EWASM was a thing started at DEFCON 0 and abandoned pretty much at DEFCON 6.
Yeah, but I think if you look at why it was abandoned, it didn't make sense in the Ethereum roadmap, right? And that's like the key reason, right? It wasn't necessarily so much a damnation against WebAssembly for smart contracts itself, but it just did not make sense in the challenges Ethereum was facing at the time, which was really like scaling.
And I guess now we are stuck with an EVM that was a VM, the EVM that was built by cryptographer, not by VM experts. So we have lots of hiccups, lots of arithmetics problem. But if we consider it a settlement layer, it kind of makes sense to have this as a layer 1 VM, I guess.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a closet ETH maxi. Oh wait, if I just said that, I guess I came out of the closet, I'm an ETH maxi. But I'm not an EVM maxi, and there's some other reasons I really like WASM. So WebAssembly was built by VM experts. It was built with performance in mind. And so one of the things that WebAssembly can do is actually just blow away the EVM in terms of compute and performance.
It runs in the browser.
It also runs in the browser. This is another great thing about WebAssembly. WebAssembly runs in the browser, and we're just at the start, really, of like people being able to experiment with what's possible with that. Like we've seen a little bit of work in the near ecosystem, things like blockchain OS. Like you can actually like run front-end code from a blockchain. That's kind of a crazy idea, but very, very decentralized if you're worried about censorship resistance, right? We've seen other ideas. Mars protocol actually takes the CosmWasm contract binaries and then puts them inside the front end for like, simulation and like getting various different types of outputs. Like
that's a big problem for games. Like if you want to run on-chain games, you need to be able to simulate the world state of your game within smart contracts. There are a couple of really good projects doing that in EVM, like Mud, or in Starknet, the various approaches. And so if it's much easier to write the game in WASM and just execute it in the browser as well. So this, as you mentioned, it's a field of innovation and of testing, I think, mostly.
Yeah, I think that, don't get me wrong, I think the EVM is going to be around for a really long time, so I don't really like the ideas of like, there's only going to be one, right? Like there's not. Like EVM is going to be around for at least 50 years, but it's going to be like COBOL, which is a language that's still in use today and runs a lot of financial infrastructure.
What,
right?
Como?
Yeah, COBOL.
Okay.
Like, this is what runs our financial infrastructure, right? And, I do buy the Ethereum as like a big settlement layer, as kind of like I vibe with that narrative. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so EVM is not going around, but the things you can do with WebAssembly are kind of really next level. Another great advantage of WebAssembly is you can use existing languages. There's a lot of great Rust developers out there. There's more good Rust devs out there than there are Solidity devs.
Absolutely.
And it's not just Rust. If you look at what the Cosmology team is now doing, you can have like very nice Solidity-like languages. There's this thing called CW script. They're working on TypeScript support, so you'll be able to write TypeScript, which is then transpiled to Rust code and compiled to WebAssembly. So like, how many TypeScript developers are there? There's a lot.
I get that transpiling in WASM, you don't lose that much of efficiency and performances because in the end, WASM is pretty efficient. But I don't really understand the argument of, look, you can write the smart contract in any language you like. It's all compiled to WASM. It's good because you are moving away from the blockchain complexity or abstracting yourself from the blockchain complexity in not the most secure approach. Like if you write in Solidity, which is already like a language that's like not the best language. But
do we want to talk about security? Because I'm happy to go there.
You have to manipulate a lot of blockchain concepts to write a good Solidity code, which when you write in Rust for WASM, you may be too far away from that pure blockchain infrastructure and blockchain interactions, and thus attracting new developers to say, I'm going to be able to write smart contract because it's in WASM and I don't care, while it's take a lot of knowledge about how the blockchain underneath works to write them properly. Do you agree with that?
A little bit, yeah. But I would push back a little bit because I think, yes, in an ideal world, I actually don't think you can write Solidity unless you have a deep understanding of how the EVM works, right? But the fact is, people do, and then it's like that dog with the lab glasses. They don't know what they're doing, right? And Solidity is this language. It is deceptively simple. It looks really simple, right? But it's actually
extremely hard,
pretty complicated, and you really, really have to know how the EVM works, or I do not want you anywhere near writing code that's going to handle other people's money.
No, it's right. Like, but I get what you say. On the matter of writing good Solidity code, it takes a lot of time to get there. There's no debate. There's a debate on that. But once you have a good Solidity code, we pretty much, we have observed a lot of the attack surface of the EVM and how the edge cases of the EVM were working and appearing here and there. While even if the CosmWasm has limitation for ray tracency and those kind of protections, I feel like there is also a risk on going WASM by just saying we haven't had much use cases yet or much high level usage to be able to say. I
definitely disagree. Have you ever heard of Terra?
Yeah.
Terra did not crash because of flaws in its, but they were handling tens of billions of dollars. CosmWasm, tens of billions of dollars, actual apps, and
with an early build of CosmWasm actually.
Yeah, And definitely, like, if we looked a year ago or 2 years ago, yes, like there was a lot less in CosmWasm. But now you're starting to see CosmWasm not only catch up in terms of copy-paste ability, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing it actually like excel. Like if you look at something like DAO versus like DAO tooling in Ethereum, it kind of makes DAO tooling in Ethereum look like a joke. Oh, nice snapshot poll you got there. In CosmWasm, we can do ranked choice voting on chain. Try doing that in the EVM.
Yeah, not possible for somehow good reasons, I think. But although on the what I meant to say with we've observed the different attack surfaces is that more usage, more use cases, more experiments will bring new flaws and potentially new protections in how you handle the WASM to blockchain link with the different libraries that are in CosmWasm. So they will get better. But from the get-go, you are in a form of uncharted territories where you are happy to head because you can write the code in a language you already know, rather than running another language.
Like, so you basically inherit all the tooling that comes with like WebAssembly that has been built over the last 2 decades. You have runtime as isolation.
Yeah. You know, Foundry is pretty good. I've been working on this like art project, and Foundry is really amazing. But I still running like Solidity again with Foundry, which is probably the best tooling out there if you're a Solidity developer. Like, it just pales in comparison to the kind of stuff we have in WebAssembly and Rust. Like for example, we have these amazing thing called macros in Rust, which is like, for those who don't know, a macro is like kind of code that writes code.
And we have dynamic jumps.
But like that, I think there's also this question of investment, right? Like where how much has been invested into like taking this hack that was made by. I love this hack, but you know it was made by like people to solve a certain problem in like 2014, 2015, right? And they put billions of dollars to like just trying to get. And if you look at CosmWasm, for example, the amount of money that has gone into CosmWasm, even versus the Cosmos SDK, what, like Confio gets like a $1 million, $2 million budget. Now that's going to change very soon. We have plans to make that change very soon. Wasm deserves to be a much more supported and awesome ecosystem. You know, I really hope to see, I think we're going to see a WebAssembly L2 soon.
Absolutely. No, I mean, Altlayer is proposing WebAssembly L2s as a service on Ethereum L1. But I have a spicy one on that, specifically on how EVM was built. Like in the early days of Ethereum, it was initially the C++ client was written by His Almightiness Gav of Wood, the inventor of Solidity, the inventor of the EVMs and so on. And he moved away from the light and created Polkadot. Or like still got some light or some shadow. I don't want to, depending on how you want to put it. And Polkadot is WASM at its core, but all the private chains that are getting tractions are EVM based. So it's like the light is.
It's like a religion, basically. The EVM is a religion. It's the initial smart contract framework that got a lot of people in. And ideally, if you start a new like system, you want to have people to be able to fork out their stuff and deploy with the cheapest cost involved. So I think that's also what explains the fact that we still see a lot of EVM chains running. And
totally, and I agree with all that. It takes a while to build out a new ecosystem. But then I think if you look at the trend of WASM, right, we're starting to get to the point where not only do we have the copy-paste ability, which is important, right? If you're a CosmWasm chain launching today, like 2 years ago, this was not the case. You want multi-sigs, you want DAO tooling, you want DEXs, you want whatever. Like none of it existed, right? Like it all had to be built. Nowadays, that's not the case. There's like even really great like open source versions for all the things I've just listed, right? And so it takes time for an ecosystem to mature, and we should like take like set back our expectations a little bit, right? Like you can be really excited as for CosmWasm or just for the future of WebAssembly smart contracts, but acknowledge that it's still like a relatively new ecosystem compared to Ethereum. And depending on what your use case is, you might very well choose the EVM. One of the things that I'm really excited about though is more hybrid models, right? So for example, the idea of like running an EVM inside of CosmWasm or being able to write WASM code that will like do like Ethereum call signatures, or Ethereum has amazing Rust libraries, for example, and there's nothing stopping you from like using those in your WebAssembly smart contract environment. So maybe it's not either or, right? It could maybe the future successful model is going to be this like sort of hybrid approach.
You have like Arbitrum Stylus, which is a great example of this.
No, completely. I mean, we are trying to onboard more people into blockchain. So one thing I love about this onboarding problem is the approach of SegP 256R1, WebAuthn and Passkeys, which is native to WASM, or like already available in WASM, which is not, or really not in the EVM. We have to write the verifier in Solidity and optimize it, or maybe get them as a precompile. Getting into a new VM gets you a new stage of maturity in terms of what code you can execute on it. But at probably a lower stage of maturity into how much of the existing middleware and basic tooling you can find on the L1 can be applied to this new VM. In the case of Cosmos, yeah, as you said, like the DAO, the multisig, and all of those kind of tools can be now imported because of the modular approach of Cosmos as a whole. And I feel like it's going to be a much quicker path for the EVM to have that available as well. But definitely more flexibility on the VM would be greatly appreciated for on-chain verification as a whole.
It's definitely something that I'm really interested in, is like WASM EVM hybrids, right? Like this is, I think, a very rich area that's like a good transition phase. I do think eventually WASM is going to become like a much more popular VM than it is right now.
I think it's going to be much more popular, but my view is that 36 months the EVM will remain the de facto smart contracting platform, the main smart contracting platform.
Yeah, I disagree. I mean, I think we're just talking about timeframes, right? Like we're.
But as a business owner, like trying to make a living and having a successful team on the space, I bet on the EVM because I see 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. Okay, so that's a matter of runway. Like, where do you want to be if you want to execute and actually be able to sell and deploy? And like, if you take a step back, like, okay, we have the EVM, which is probably like a good combustion engine. It fits most of the use cases. It's probably not sustainable in the ultra long run. Now, is CosmWasm and WASM as a whole a birotary motor, like a birotary engine, like some super cool innovation, and like we can do much better, and it's theoretically feasible, and we can do things? Or is it the electric engine? Like, shall we move there slowly, like building up the infrastructure to have a resource station, or should we accept that those two are going to run next to each other for a pretty long time? Because for your day-to-day and simple applications and things that doesn't require lots of peer-reviewed and lots of experience on building off, maybe a Uniswap version in WASM is good enough for an L3 or an L4. Maybe it's better to use the plain Uniswap if you're on L2 because it's proven and there's a lot of tooling on this. That's where I don't know really if I'm willing to make a bet on hybrid right now or if I'm willing to wait.
I like contrarian bets, and I think it's always cool to like build the next thing, right? Like, but it depends on what you're doing, right? Like, and so that's a perfectly valid perspective. I'm not saying that's like not a valid point, right? But for me, I'm just like interested in like what is the thing that is going to push what you can do with smart contracts forward the quickest. And I think WebAssembly is just like going to be a much faster. I mean, look at. Again, just going back to DAO as an example. Here is a DAO that has zero VC funding and has features like sub-DAOs, built-in support for IBC, complex like permission systems with authorizations, like NFT DAOs, roles DAOs, like membership DAOs. Like all of this was like happened much faster because the tooling is so much better. I think another thing that we're going to be seeing a lot more and is super, super important and vital to our industry is privacy stuff, right? ZK, like, and the thing is, Rust, all the cryptographic libraries are written in Rust. And I don't want to have to rewrite those in Solidity. That would be a nightmare. And it's just, I think the tech stack that is going to push forward like our industry forward fastest the most, I want to accelerate the development. And I think that WebAssembly, I already know this from personal experience, like, and I wouldn't, every use case, every founder, you're going to need to make your own decisions in terms of like what you're doing, when you're doing it, where your go to market is. But as a technologist, someone who wants to build the future, I can just see that WebAssembly is going to, it might be slower in the short term, but it's going to be like exponentially much faster to like push innovation forward as we go forward.
So fast or convenient?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Because if you say like, okay, well, we probably live in a transition generation where most of the people will have exposure to code, we have exposure to writing an HTML page, writing a small Python routine or something like this. In this world where we make coding available to everyone, it makes total sense to say, hey, you want to actually have a code that's safely executed and that's also uncensorable and people that interact with this code can actually look at this. Like being able to write a code with, and commit this code with one another would be, I think, much easier in this future world in WASM than it would be in EVM. Like, okay, now get your mastering Ethereum book, read the different things, capture the flag of OpenZeppelin. Okay, now you can write a code that says, if you do this, you do that. If you do this, you owe me this. If you reimburse, I owe you this. But how fast are we going to be going on this direction? This I don't know, and I'm very comfortable with having the EVM as this settlement layer. Say, okay, well, in the end, it's committing to the EVM, and we have this clumsy thing that we kind of know how it works. It can go south, but we kind of know how it works. So,
I think it's like it's Ethereum though as the settlement layer, right? Like it's less about the EVM and more about like, you know, the culture, the assets, the liquidity, right? Like all these other, like the EVM is almost like marginal to like the people, the liquidity, the monetary policy, the assets, like how many like ETH alone as an asset is, you know, crazy large. But look at Compound or Aave or all these things, like, right? It's like, to me, it's like the EVM. Yes, I'm not. It's going to be around for a long time, but like
we still speak Latin in churches, and I think that if you choose to deploy, if you're looking for, you know, you want to access that liquidity, these network effects, and all those good things that you have in ETH, you can't expect the specs of the EVM to change overnight or the EVM to become parallelizable on mainnet, but you still want to have something that composes and that accesses that liquidity. I think it all depends ultimately on the business.
I think WASM will be able to access that. This is my like current like life mission right now. Is like I'm determined to access that. Like and we are not going to stop until we do. I don't know what the time frame is going to be, but like WASM, we're coming for Ethereum. Like,
so in the EWASM was a good attempt. I really love this project. And I think the team behind EWASM would be both a little bit burned that they didn't go as fast as they would expect, but also willing to take again.
And also when I say WASM on it, like coming for Ethereum, it's like just being able, like today when I was talking about like TVL versus total reachable liquidity. I just want to make that liquidity reachable, right? And it might be in the form of like an app rollup, right? That has like a smart contract that's written in Solidity on Ethereum. But the fact is like, being able to control it, being able to access that liquidity from like a different VM.
I like your argument of saying for most of the users, the EVM is already alien. Like we don't really know how it works, we don't really know what it is. I had a chat at lunch about someone that's just telling about onboarding, and they were telling me like, well, I'm building an Explorer, and I don't want anyone to be onboarded that the first thing they do is click on the link that open another website and show them the Explorer, because the Explorer is complex. The Explorer makes people scared, like what are those 0x stuff and what is a block height and so on. But probably. But from my point of view, looking at people being onboarded on blockchain. They get curious, they click, they open the thing, they look at how, like it's like a car, like you have your first car, and like in the 50s, in the 60s, you would open up the thing and look at the engine and like, oh, this is the engine, no, I probably should know where to put more oil or when to put more this, when to put more that. Like, so I have a feeling which is probably an optimistic thought about saying that when people start to use Ethereum, they start to open the EVM, to open the Explorer, to look at the contract, to look at the thing. Like just out of curiosity, like when is my next transaction, my transaction is going to be confirmed. What was the execution? What did it call? Oh, it called mint. Oh no, it called transfer all. Oh, I'm wrecked. Like it's this kind of thing. Like they open up the Explorer. Like so. Now having more and more people getting into opening the thing and looking at the engine makes it more easy to ask your friend like, hey, by the way, what does it mean, like this call on this contract? What does it mean this contract is a blue tick and so on? So it creates a general knowledge of this thing is working, and there's a flywheel on people getting more and more accustomed in interacting with the EVM. From that point of view, like, what do you think? How do you think it would? How easy do you think it would be to have a WASM Explorer and make WASM accessible?
Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, I will acknowledge that Etherscan as a block explorer is like very far ahead of, like, you know, MintScan's doing a pretty decent job, but there's like a lot more. We have a long way to go to make, you know, but the potential is there, right? Like we can do the same things. That is something as an ecosystem we just need to keep pushing forward on, right?
Yeah. Maybe we should take questions from the crowd, no?
Yeah, maybe the crowd has some spicy questions that will get us to fight more. I don't know.
Thank you.
There's more. Yeah, this side is too hot.
You talk about Gavin Wood.
Yeah.
So we
Gavin Wood. Gavin Wood. Gavin Wold. Gavin Wold, okay. Definitely.
So we have a co-founder of Ethereum who founded another project. And there is another guy who is also a co-founder of Ethereum, Charles Hoskinson, and he said Ethereum has no network effects. And you said, I have the network effects based on the EVM. So do we know what is actual real network effects? Because a few hours ago, we talked about reachable liquidity, not just liquidity.
No, there's a lot of different dimensions where you can estimate the network effect. Like the most obvious one is how many nodes. Like how many nodes are there on the layer one? How many people are replicating the thing? If I pull this plug, how many are still alive? I think we are in between the 8K and the 10K nodes on Ethereum right now. It's difficult to probe, though. Okay. Now the network effect for me, I see it as the EVM franchise. You know, you have the Marvel franchise, like how many spin-off, how many things, how many Avengers do we get? Like the fact that this VM was adopted by various chains that are doing God's work of onboarding people onto the chain. I'm talking about the BNB chain, the Polygon chain.
You mean all those vampire attacks? You know, I think one of the key advantages of WASM and CosmWasm specifically is this built-in support for IBC. And so you can have this network effect that's much more real, where you can actually capture, like deploy protocols and capture value from those protocols on every chain these things are deployed on permissionlessly.
Definitely, you have the rise in fees on Ethereum layer 1 makes some applications not possible on layer 1 anymore. There's a form of a death hug from DeFi, like, hey, now you either do DeFi or you go fuck around somewhere else. Excuse my French, but that's definitely the case for gaming. And in the case of, okay, the price is too high now on Ethereum, so where are we going to go? Well, we're going to go on another chain because we are going to move a couple of €100, so it doesn't make sense to pay 20 euros for the fees. So there's a form of vampire attack-ish or extension of the extension.
I think it's just crude, like, right? Like in this new interchain world we're going into, like being able to, like, and we have seen Ethereum protocols like deploy on, you know, these other EVM chains, right? But they're not connected in any meaningful way, and I think that that's something that's like kind of lacking from that model.
I think Charles' remark on we have no network effect is a Trumpian argument. No.
Charles is the worst founder from Ethereum.
We have no network argument.
Yeah, I totally disagree with that. Like, no network effect. What is he talking? What is he?
So you have formal verification.
Well, for one transaction per second, okay. Anyway, Tezos has a form of verification as well. But anyway, the point is, like, how do you measure network effect? So I think all
Haskell.
new chains.
Haskell is how you get network effects.
Yep.
Like, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
you measure it by the length, the wideness of the network, but also having newcomers saying, I want to go on EVM. Having L2s being like, oh, I want to go on EVM as well. I think the ease of recruiting someone to do a specific smart contract work in Solidity. the ease in finding suppliers for middlewares or core infrastructure stuff. And for me, the most important thing is the installed number of wallets. Like how many wallets are you compatible with? Like if I launch an EVM, I have to convince the guys from MetaMask to list my new network, and okay, voila, now those users can use my network. That's a network effect as well.
I mean, yeah, they're coming for Cosmos as well. I have a slightly different take. I agree with all that. But yeah, I was being sarcastic about the Haskell thing. That's how you don't get network effects. Because at the end of the day, you have to build actually useful applications for people. People have built actually useful applications in the EVM, right? And then it's much easier to build usable applications in WebAssembly. Like the Haskell developers, like you can't hire those people, and then the performance of their network sucks. And I don't think marketing squads going around and shilling coins to people in South Asia is I don't think that counts as network effect.
Making someone install a wallet is probably the hardest thing we have to do in this ecosystem. So whichever VM or whichever chain has the most installed wallet has a good head start, or most good compatible wallets.
I do think though that there's a lot that we can gain from just coming together, right?
Yeah.
Standardization. Again, I don't think this is an either-or thing. Maybe we should have fought more, but in many ways, these ecosystems are kind of merging together. The Interchain, Ethereum, WebAssembly, EVM, the lines are going to get increasingly blurred. Even wallets, right? As we standardize more wallet connection type interfaces, I'm really excited for Snaps to come to MetaMask.
And Wasm will remove a lot of friction.
And I think that here we're celebrating interoperability. You have the IBC Light Client bridging framework, storage proofs incoming. So there's also a future where both machines can actually coexist in harmony. Wait, not harmony, but they can coexist. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And learn from each other.
Coexistence, interoperability. Who wouldn't be excited about that? Who wouldn't be excited about from a Cosmos chain you can access and work with assets and accounts on Ethereum? This is the future. This is the Interchain future. Let's go.
That's a good closing remark. Well, thank you everyone. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Jerome, and